association. It's called the International Institute for Sustainable Laboratories. And it is located it's headquartered in Washington, D.C. And we've been around about 6 years, but the operation, our organization, has been involved with what was called the Labs 21 program, which was started back in the mid-90s. And I was responsible for that when I was in our federal government at the time. So some of the things that we're trying to do, obviously, is encourage sustainable practices, whether it's in the design, in the construction, the operation of the facility, and eventually the disposal. We're more interested at this point in the actual physical facility and what that would be, although there's more interest, or a growing interest, with regard to the users. And what we've really been able to identify right along is that the laboratories, like other sorts of facilities that are very technical, it could be a hospital, or it could be a data center, or a clean room, they change quite often, and that change in terms of the activities is usually associated with a research objective or a technological change or a shift, which is usually brought on by the user. So we need to inform our users about what those facilities can do, how to use them, and how to best be safe and responsible in the use of those facilities. So we're focused on that. Our organization's goal is to reach out internationally. So as you may have heard in the last day that we were here together, the Metra Foundation, as well as Egnaton, spun off of what we've started in the States. We don't claim to know all the answers for this by any means. What we hope to do is identify organizations, or help spawn organizations around the world that would be interested in at least serving their country, or maybe their region, in the same way we have been doing with the United States. So that's pretty much our goal. Look at what are the changes that are going on in the United States. Wouldn't be necessarily outside of what you might see in Europe, most of the advanced countries. And I say that those that have been able to develop and stay on the front end of development have probably the same kinds of issues. So what we're seeing is there's a lot more interest in energy, a lot more interest in resources in general, and how they're applied to these facilities and then used by the users and managed by the facility operations and management staff. So what we're trying to do, and what we see happening, is there's a greater need to connect the facility's plan or design with how it is to be constructed, with how it's to be operated. So there's this process of a linear process from design to construction to operation, eventually to disposal. A lot of people talk about cradle to grave, or cradle to cradle rather. What we're seeing is pieces of this happening. It's not a continuum yet. It's going to take a while to change an industry that has been set in a mold of, I do this, I'm the designer, I'm the architect. When I hand it off to the constructor, they do their thing, and then they hand it off to the user, they do their thing. And it's very stovepipe, it's very segmented, and responsibility and ownership, if you will, doesn't stay with that facility. People finish a job and they walk away. They sell you a piece of equipment and they walk away. So what we hope to be able to do is bring more continuity through that process, so that responsibility stays with the individual that made that product or made that design, and it now becomes used. And what we think that will do, it will strengthen the delivery of a product. It will ensure that that product then operates, or that building operates the way it was intended, so that the inventor or the salespeople or the provider of that technology, that building, maintain a responsibility for the services that were expected under the, under that procurement or that purchase. So what we see in the U.S. is there's a growing awareness of this, but you have to change an industry. I mean, and it's going to take some time. I liken it to the Titanic. Titanic is going, they see the iceberg, but they can't quite turn fast enough. And that's kind of where we are. We see the iceberg, we're turning the wheel, and the trick is, will we turn fast enough? And I think we're all in that same boat and trying to make those adjustments. So it's still piecemeal, and some people, some organizations are making those adjustments, but there's such a broad group involved in delivering and operating a building that everybody has to get involved with that. And we're not quite, well, we're not there eventually. So you start somewhere. Well, the network is basically these organizations that have taken root in different parts. There's one in England. There's now one in headquartered out of Germany, the Egnaton Group, and there's something here in Spain, the Metro Foundation. But we're working with others, including Asia, New Zealand, Canada. So we don't, at least I don't expect that these groups will form into one. I think it's more of a network of communication and helping, sharing circumstances, conditions relative to the country, its codes and standards that may be set and have been set by their government or governing bodies. It's going to take a while for those to become standard, and we can't force that. I think by communication and now talking with one another and knowing that one another exists, this sharing will take place. And we may come to that common understanding, but not by force, I don't believe. It has to come by acknowledgement and recognizing that we are kind of doing the same sort of thing. And so we'll become closer aligned, not by force, but by recognition and honesty. So I believe what we're doing in this initial stages is really showing that there is a group that's out there that's willing to work together. And with time, we'll share more, we'll work together more often. I'll come back to Spain. Others will come to the US and we'll go other places. We all have limited budgets, limited time, but I think we have to make a commitment to one another to stay open and to communicate. I think that's our objective, and if we can do that, we will have achieved, a significant bit of progress. The next step that we're working on right now, at least in the early stages of this group's, I would call it this network's identification, is attempting to recognize one activity or one document that we could all agree to. It would be simple. It would not involve changing of codes. It would not be a forcible document. It would be more of a guide. If we can identify something that we can work together on and agree to, and we can all sign, yes, this is what our organizations believe is important to know, without saying, you have to do this. If we can find that one thing, and I think we have, and we can sign to that and get an agreement that that is representing all of our interests, even if it's only a page or two, it's a step in the right direction. It starts formulating that goodwill, that open dialogue, and the partnership which we believe we're in through this network. So that's probably my view of the network. It would not be a separate organization, but it would be a collaborative of each of the groups to, at a level of communication and sharing. Well, the easy one is WOSLAB, because I'm here. Now this is great. I think much like where we started, it was talking to the people that are among your country, you know, and gathering momentum internally. This kind of event needed to happen, or needs to happen. I think it's been successful, very successful. It's a start. You didn't get 10,000 people here. It's not a big market. It's a niche market. But it's a start, and there are people here that came because they were interested. So we have a commitment. We have a global, a wide commitment from various universities, which are some of your big owners of laboratories. So I think this event has been historic in that perspective, and it has shown that Spain is willing to make an effort and is serious about moving in this direction. So as far as WOSLAB has gone in the last 2 days now, I think it's been wildly successful. And we hope to see it continue in some form in the future. And probably I'll come back for that again. In terms of the Metro Foundation, that's the kernel of responsibility. That's the motivator, kind of like we are in the US. Without that working body, without that commitment of a group of people to move these ideas forward, we wouldn't be here at WOSLAB, right? It wouldn't have happened. You need some leadership. We need some leadership too. And so I think the sorts of initiatives that the Metro Foundation is pursuing are consistent with, I think, the types of initiatives that we're doing in the US, that Egnaton in general is doing, others are thinking about doing, or may in fact be doing. So I think the centralizing kind of what would I call it, the organizing factor here is the commitment to sustainability in laboratories. And that's not a hard definition. I mean, we had several conversations in these meetings, even this week, trying to define what is sustainability. Everybody has a little bit of a different idea of that. But the kernel of it is really pretty evident. I mean, we know it in our hearts. We know it in our gut. So that level of understanding is a strong binding. And I think that's the value, one of the key values of the foundation, is that the people that are there have that understanding. It may be expressed differently, but it's in their hearts, and they know what to do. So that guidance, that leadership that the Metro Foundation will provide, whether through WOSLAB or through any of the initiatives it takes on, will be key to the success of moving sustainable laboratories within Spain, and probably even within Europe further along. So I think it's a key organizing body that is necessary. You need a champion within, and that's the champion within.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's